everyone, and welcome back to Om-gnosis, the Occult South Asia Podcast. I'm Dr. Keith Edward Cantú, your host and a lecturer at Harvard Divinity School and research affiliate here at the Center for the Study of World Religions. And today we're going to do something a little bit different for this 12th episode. We are going to have a summary of a journey that I was able to take over the summer, a research trip of sorts that started one way and sort of kept on going, ended in another way. And I think it can give some insight into some of the research questions that people tackle while they are sort of in the field, while they're looking for new material, and also the new insights and new images, new really relationships along the way that are forged in apps like WhatsApp or, over the phone, Facebook, all kinds of different social media networks and so on. And it's been, those of you who've been following the episode so far, quite a journey with some of these interviews. We've had quite a range so far, covering a lot of material. And here in this particular episode, what I want to do is give you a taste of a certain research trajectory that is multifaceted, but I think will come together in some of the common threads that you'll see in this video. And so I'll be curious what you all take away from this video, and let's go from there. So those of you who know me know that my wife is from Bangladesh, and her family lives in Dhaka, the capital. And so over the summer, with my responsibilities sort of tied up, teaching as well a course on Occult South Asia here at Harvard Divinity School, with those responsibilities out of the way, we were able to plan a summer visiting Dhaka and Bangladesh. And along the way, I was able to travel from Dhaka to various cities in India as well. And so the summer really straddled both of those worlds, both in Dhaka, Bangladesh, and in various parts of India. Not just one place, but I was fortunate to be able to visit several places, including New Delhi, Mumbai, and Chennai, as well as Coimbatore, and also Varanasi for a very short time. Wasn't able this time, unfortunately, to spend a lot of time in Kolkata, or really any time at all, except for the airport, but I hope to return back on a future visit very soon. So one of the first places that I was able to visit was New Delhi. And in New Delhi, I was able to really reconnect with some of these threads related to Sri Sabhapati Swami. Now, if you've listened to the interview with Vinayagam Swamigal a few episodes back, or if you've read my book, Like a Tree Universally Spread, Sri Sabhapati Swami and Shiva Raja Yoga, then you'll know that there are so many threads across India that sort of converge in this figure, and it's sort of a huge universe, right, in and of itself. And one of the places where we can actually explore further into this figure is through the trail of publications and texts that he left behind. And those of you who might know anything about rare books or publications, you can find bookstores, but sometimes it's kind of hard to find rare books in India itself, simply because most of them are held in private archives, or they're held, in public government libraries, or they're sort of, passed down, within the family, and they sort of stay, that way. And the climate in many parts of India is also not super favorable to publications, since the pages can dry out, especially some of the earlier ways in which paper, was being produced. And so part of my initial task in New Delhi was to try to find and track down some publications by either Sri Sabhapati Swami or by adjacent sort of figures in order to help sort of spread some of his publications out of private archives and, into other places around India and South Asia as a whole. And I wasn't too successful in that task in New Delhi, but I was able to find a rare bookseller and actually, make a connection and find some sources and texts that are really interesting, including one by John Campbell Oman, who had actually met Sabhapati Swami and included him in one of his books. So in any case, while I was in Delhi, even though I wasn't finding the exact sort of, textual trail I was looking for, I was able to meet with a former friend and colleague from the Latent Light culture, also known as the Holy Order of Krishna. And that's an interesting group that I encourage you to do some research on. They are still extant, even though they were founded in southern India in Tirunelveli. They quickly moved and, are now based in Delhi. And I was also able to visit the National Museum of India and take loads and loads of pictures. And also the Qutub Minar, which was a really amazing place that, had a lot of echoes for me of Baul and Fakiri songs, practices, and so on. So I wish I would have been able to spend more time in Delhi. I mean, I've been several times since probably around, I guess it would have been 2008 was my first trip to Delhi. But, every time I'm in that city, something new will really kind of jump out at me in an incredible way. And I'm sure if any of you all who are watching this who are from that particular city will really, understand just how vibrant and how much is going on in that particular city. So from Delhi, though, I knew that there was a loose end that I wanted to take care of in Mumbai. And in Mumbai, there was a center, a Zoroastrian center, the Framji Kawasji Institute, where Sri Sabhapati Swami had lectured in the 19th century. And this is mentioned in a supplement to the Theosophist journal. And Sabhapati Swami was known to sort of give initiations for people into Raja Yoga there. That's what's mentioned in the article, and give a series of lectures that likely included diagrams. And in visiting that particular library, which is still extant, not the Framji Kawasji library, but there's another public library. I heard from the librarian it's the oldest public library in Mumbai, formerly known as Bombay. And that particular library, sure enough, had a copy of Sri Sabhapati Swami's book, his lectures on Raja Yoga, Vedanta and Raja Yoga, that were published in, I believe, 1950 or thereabouts. It was a second printing, so not an original, but a second edition. Still, it's really interesting that those echoes, lived on even long after Sabhapati Swami had died. So from Mumbai, I was able to travel to Chennai and then actually directly to Coimbatore. And in Coimbatore and Ooty, the current name of Ooty, Udagamandalam, those two places really were the core of my mission over this particular summer, and it was just a wonderfully productive trip. I had visited the ashram of Om Prakash Swamigal, who is Sri Sabhapati Swami's student, and his ashram is just adjacent to a temple called Kasi Viswanatha. And this particular temple in the Kandal area of Ooty is a really serene and vibrant place as well. And in visiting this temple, I was able to finally, after quite a lot of back and forth, I was having some issues accessing the library, which I had accessed before on a few research trips. But finally, I was able to get permission by going back from Ooty to Coimbatore, where there is this place called the Perur Adinam. And the Perur Adinam is associated with a Swami named Santalinga Swamigal, who was a Virashaiva teacher. And I believe 16th century, thereabouts, 16th, 17th century. And Santalinga Swamigal was part of the same guru parampara that one of Sabhapati Swami's gurus emerged from, Belacheri Chirambara Swamigal, also known as Chirambara Perya Swamigal. So it's really cool to kind of see those connections and have to sort of, go to the root of some of these teachings and ideas. And currently the Perur Adinam has jurisdiction over the Madam meaning meditation hall, Mat, right, a place where yoga is also practiced. And it was really great to find out that they now have jurisdiction over the Om Prakash Swamigal library and Madam in Ooty, Udaga Mandalam. So I was able to get permission and then go back up the Nilgiri route up to Ooty and Kandal, and it's a beautiful biodiverse region full of just trees, wildlife, tea plantations, for the most part very friendly people. It can get touristy, but there's still like a just a very fresh vibe and spirit there. And many people don't know, they go there since it's sort of this holiday place. There's this, the toy train that kind of will take you up and down between Ooty and Coonoor, other hill stations and towns along the way. And it was a former, British hill station where they would sort of escape the heat during the colonial period. Also nicknamed Snooty Ooty, right? But a lot of people don't know that it's also a very important site for modern yoga, and even more specifically within that realm of modern yoga for Occult South Asia. And the reason that is that if you visit Om Prakash Swamigal's library, then you will find everything from first editions of the Theosophist. You will find works on mental healing and New Thought. You will find, runs of Arthur Avalon publication, that collaboration. You can see the interview I did with Julian Struba about them and the judge, John Woodruff. And then on the other hand, you have really, really deep works in Tamil and Telugu that have to do with yoga, Shaivism, both Shaiva Siddhanta, Vedanta. You have really, really interesting compendia of the songs of Tayumanavar, another sort of singer, esoteric poet / yogi who lived before Sabhapati Swami. You have really, really rare publications and out-of-print works that are found nowhere else in the world, with sort of a tendency towards, yoga and mantra, but also you have, colonial era atlases and geographical publications and photography albums and runs of journals that are really hard to find, like including one from Sivananda, I think the Divine Life Society. You have the Kalpaka, the journal published by the Holy Order of Krishna, Latent Light Culture, that I was talking about. And so you have this sort of really interesting blend where on the one hand you have Sanskrit and Tamil and lots of Telugu works, and then you also have works that are, tending more towards occult sciences, theosophy, and the serpent power, and also, new thought, meditation, mental healing, these kinds of works as well. And so Om Prakash Swamigal's ashram and library is really a place where these converge, and you can kind of see that his own work was really a natural extension of Sri Sabhapati Swami and his times, and what Om Prakash Swamigal sort of did was more explicitly bring some of these streams together, especially in the period that straddles the twilight of colonial rule in India by the British and then Indian independence. I mean, even Mahatma Gandhi visited Om Prakash Swamigal's ashram in Kandal, which just goes to show you how important of a place it was for yoga. And so I have some forthcoming research that I'm doing and writing on Om Prakash Swamigal and the connection with mantra and publications. And so I won't give all of these, ideas and research trajectories away now, but suffice to say it was extremely productive to visit there. And in terms of publications, which I was talking about earlier, it was just an amazing way to get physical access again to some of Sri Sabhapati Swamigal's publications that are incredibly rare and some of which are not found anywhere else in the world. One of them, published in 1889, existed in 10 to 15 copies at Om Prakash Swamigal's ashram, and I was able to access it for the first time when I was there in 2020 doing research as part of an American Institute of Indian Studies fellowship. And it was interrupted by COVID. I had to leave very quickly, and I didn't have time to fully integrate some of the important teachings from that work into my book, though, I was able to get enough in there in time. But, the more that I dive into the diagrams and the teachings from this particular Tamil book, it's clear that it's really, really important as a record of modern yoga and Tamil as well, and vividly illustrated. So it's, one of the sort of main catalysts behind my current project, which is to create a digital publication of Sabhapati Swami's yoga diagrams that hopefully will be out in print form as well through Harvard University. So, it was a wonderful way to get access to these publications again, including other of Sabhapati Swami's diagrams that Om Prakash Swamigal had preserved as his student, and also get a sense for some of the people who Om Prakash Swamigal had trained as his students, including a female student named Ganga Devi. And I had never heard of her before, nor knew about her work as a student, and I was able to get some publications. I went on a photography spree. I mean, we're talking, thousands, tens of thousands of photos of books, of publications, so much stuff. But it was amazing, and I'm really grateful to the Perur Adinam and the Swami there for giving me access to the library, and also for his generosity in allowing me to take some books from Om Prakash Swamigal's ashram in order to disseminate to libraries in India and in North America and possibly Europe and the British Library as well. So that was really an instrumental and amazing time. And I realized that from there, it was quickly time to go back to Dhaka in Bangladesh, where a symposium on another topic was about to take place. And this symposium was on the Chorjapod, also known as the Caryāpadas in Sanskrit. And the Chorjapod or Chorjagiti are a collection, usually numbered as 50 of these songs by different Siddhas of the Tantric Buddhist tradition, or at least leaning that way. And there are, modern attempts to revitalize these songs and give them a performative context using Bengali folk melodies, whether from kirtan or whether from, other sources. Bhav Shongit is the phrase in Bangla, music, mood music, music for devotion, music for reflection, music for love, that kind of thing. And so people now in Dhaka, thanks to the efforts of Simon Zakaria and his wife, Sadika Tanya, they are both really instrumental in revitalizing some of these songs. And there are many other artists who are instrumental in making sure that these songs are emerging again in the repertoire and performance contexts in Bangladesh. So I attended a symposium in Dhaka where I was a special guest along with Deborah Janat, a fakir from France who actually has settled in Bangladesh. And it was great to just be a part of that symposium and also to deliver a paper. I delivered a paper or talk on Sheikh Zayed's Addo Porichoy, a work in Middle Bengali that really talks about this idea of bindu, which means drop, literally, or point, but came to mean in tantric literature a generative fluid, often mistranslated as semen, sort of as just the male generative fluid. But it's actually this sort of, cosmic generative fluid that can take different forms in the male or female context, but is really critical if people want to understand how the human body arises in some of these cosmologies. So it was really great to explore that again. It's part of a project that I've been working on for Bimbi, Body and Embodiment in the Middle Bengali Imaginaire, thanks to the efforts of Lucien Wong and Robert Jizrovkovsky at Oxford and Jagiellonian, respectively. And so, that sort of contrast, moving from Coimbatore and the world of Sabhapati Swami back to Dhaka and being involved in that, symposium, it might seem totally different and worlds apart, but there are still so many of these connections, especially when you look at the vocabulary that's used in some of these Middle Bengali texts and the later Baul and Pokiri songs. You'll find similar yogic vocabulary, tantric vocabulary, the chakras and lotuses and so on in those songs and the writings of Sri Sabhapati Swami. And so it's clear there's some, common substratum that's being pulled from, as these practices and theories developed in, different parts of South Asia. So, that's been really interesting to kind of see and compare. And that particular symposium ended fairly quickly, and I stayed, in Bangladesh for a little while longer. And then I flew back because no trip would be complete if I would not be able to visit my favorite temple site in Chennai, which is the Sri Sabhapati Lingeswarar Koil in Vilivakam, also known as Konur. They were originally two towns. Now they've kind of merged outside of Chennai. And this is very clearly, as I've argued and demonstrated in my book, the site of Sri Sabhapati Swami's meditation hall, Medalayam. And it was a place where Sabhapati Swami himself lived. It's unclear if it's the actual Jiva Samadhi or tumulus where Sabhapati Swami is buried, but there's a strong belief that it is, and it's very, very likely that that is the exact site, and at the very least, it's the best candidate. And so it was very great to visit that site again and reconnect with Vinayagam Swamigal and some of the other devotees, and to receive in honor even at the temple for my work on Sabhapati Swami, and to also meet the artist Sri Kumaran, who has painted some of these diagrams, even in sort of life size, really huge diagrams that are inside the inner sanctuary of the temple. And also getting to witness a puja for Shiva on sort of a really important, auspicious date on the Hindu calendar. And that was really great to experience and take part in and get to record. And so I'll share with you some of the video from that here so you get a taste of it. So from there, from Chennai, unfortunately, I wasn't able to stay longer, but I was able to go with a devotee from the Lingeswara Koil to visit Bamban Swamigal, a Swami who lived close to the beach in what is today Chennai. And his samadhi is there as well. And so that was really interesting to visit and sort of get a feel for, and also get to visit the Adyar Library and Research Center again, where I was an affiliate while doing my AAAS fellowship. And they have the best Sabhapati Swami collection in the world. And by the way, I forgot to mention, I was able to give a book by Sri Sabhapati Swami from Om Prakash Swamigal's ashram to the Sabhapati Lingeswara Koil in Chennai, as well as to the Adyar Library and Research Center. So that was really great and encouraging to be able to sort of give them books that they, did not have previously, or that, they had been lost over time. And so visiting that library again in Adyar, brought back a lot of really great memories. It was wonderful to be back there again after 5 years, and also to get to interview Dr. Radha Raghunathan, who is the director of the library, and get to sort of, talk with her about Vedanta and Shaiva Siddhanta and, the efforts of the library in sort of, carrying on the work of publishing and printing and releasing editions of the Upanishads and so on, and many other works as well. So it was great to see the staff and, see some familiar faces and get connected again with that library. Unfortunately, again, I couldn't stay long, but from Chennai, I had sort of made it a plan that, I need to go visit some places that were still lacunae. There were still some gaps in my knowledge of some of the contexts of Sabhapati Swami, as well as Tamil Śaiva religion more generally, and also, visit some Vaishnava sites along the way that I had not seen. I had been to Sri Villiputur before, which is associated with Andal, often considered one of the Alvars or Tamil Vaishnava poets, and that place was really moving for me. I've had the chance to visit it twice and hike up to Kata Perumal Koil, this temple up in the mountains nearby, and be immersed in nature along the way. But this time around, I was sort of on this mission to see some other sites and places that I had not, yet had the fortune of visiting before. And so I started my journey going south to Chidambaram. Unfortunately, I had to pass through Pondicherry, where they have the wonderful AFAO library and collections of many Tamil manuscripts, Sanskrit manuscripts, and editing and so on. I would have liked to visit there again, but I went straight through Pondicherry to Chidambaram, which, if you'll remember, there's Velachery Chidambaram Swamigal, and Chidambaram is also an important temple site. It's not just a name, if that makes sense. So you have Chidambara Peri Swamigal, where there's a connection between Sabhapati Swami's guru, Velachery Chidambara Swamigal, and this site, Chidambaram. But there's also a stronger connection in that in Chidambaram is the sort of main site that has carried on the worship of Shiva in the form of a dancer, Natarajan. And this particular form is really, really important and notable, since most of the other ways, outside this particular temple, with some exceptions, most places Shiva is worshipped in the form of a Shivalinga, a cosmic phallus that relates to the universal circle or cosmos, if you will. And this, in many cases, is also a symbol insofar as this Shivalinga also includes the yoni, or divine feminine principle. You have actually sort of this complete conception of the cosmos as it is becoming manifest there. And in the case of Shiva as the dancer, it's tempting to sort of get lost in the beautiful art of this chora, bronze motif, if you will. Many of you have probably seen them, the chora bronzes or the Natarajan figure or image at various museums, perhaps, or across India. You'll find statues of it here and there. But it's really notable that particular image can also be connected, especially in Sabhapati Swami's works, with the idea of the Shivalinga or the universal circle. So there's a whole sort of philosophical speculation on this idea, on this symbol, on this form, that enables you to also get beyond that particular form. And that connects the symbol also with techniques and methods of yoga. And so I was more interested on this trip with understanding Chidambaram as a site, and I knew I was going to teach this upcoming Hinduism and sound course at the Divinity School this semester. And so I wanted to sort of also, get a sense for how the sound of the puja works. It is very famous for these bells, and at the climax of the puja they even bring in an elephant, and the elephant makes a loud noise, and there are also instrumentalists, the different sort of instruments that are used in drums and so on. And it was just really, really a powerful experience to be there for that particular sort of puja and moment, and get to experience the importance of music and sound in that particular temple, and also be able to get permission to photograph, which I'm really grateful for. It's hard to get access to photograph some of the sculptures and sort of stone images on the pillars, many of which seem to date to the Vijayanagara period. So but then there were some that were possibly even earlier that had instruments and drums and depictions of dancing and so on. So from there, from Chidambaram, I knew that I had to go to Thanjavur, that was a really big gap in my knowledge and travel. And so what I was able to do is, get a car to go from Chidambaram, and then on the way stop in Kumbakonam. And it was really, really great to be able to stop at a famous Vaishnava Perumal temple. And in that particular Perumal temple, I was able to hear chanting of the Samaveda. And that was really, a great experience to sort of learn more about the connection between chanting and, Vaishnavism in a Tamil Vaishnava context. I had heard it before, in Sri Villiputtur and elsewhere, near outside Madurai. But, it was really great to sort of experience that and also take lots of photos. And then from Kumbakonam, go and arrive in Thanjavur, where I knew that there was a library, Sarasvati Mahal library, that had an edition of Sabhapati Swami's 1913 book, also in Tamil. And that was a really productive and amazing visit. I was able to look at the primary source again. I had previously had a scan of it, but being able to look at the primary source in evaluating the diagrams, I was thinking, hey, wait a minute. One of these diagrams actually has faded, and there's a diagram that I had never seen before. And so that particular diagram was only at that particular library, as a part of that particular work. And so I've worked to restore this diagram using Photoshop and other methods. And so you can kind of see with the color back what it would have looked like. And it also connects to the narrative and the numbering system in this particular book by Sabhapati Swami, which was composed, getting towards the end of his life, later in life, and is associated with the, what is today the Sabhapati Lingeshwara Koil or temple in Villivakkam. So, that was just really great to see in person and get to access, and also sort of get to see the culture of the Saraswati Mahal Library, visit the museum nearby, at the palace, and get to see the hall of Natarajan statues, which I will show you a little bit of here, so you get a sense of the wider picture. So, it's great to be able to merge knowledge, experiential knowledge of a temple context with this knowledge of, the museum and the wider context of this particular image and form that is also so prevalent in Sabhapati Swami's own works and books, many of the diagrams of which I am currently in the process of translating. So from Thanjavur, the last thing that I was able to do there was visit the Brihadiswarar temple, which again was just groundbreaking for me. It was, not only, such a magnificent sight to see. I had seen a painting from the colonial period of the giant Nandi and the temple as it was, but to be able to sort of walk in and experience that temple and the sort of magnificent architecture and culture of that area, it was really great to see, and also to experience some of the paintings around the courtyard. I know there are many more ancient frescoes and paintings from the Chola period, but for me, I was really interested in the Thanjavur Nayaka paintings that were adorning the courtyard, since what I was able to see is that there is such a direct connection between these paintings and the paintings or drawings and diagrams in some of Sabhapati Swami's works, especially his 1889 work. There's sort of a direct connection there. Even the way that caves are, depicted, and the way in which Shiva is depicted as a yogi in these Nayaka paintings is really similar to the way that yogis are depicted in Sabhapati's works as well. So it was really cool to see that, really great to visit some of the temple sites and the more museum part of it to the side. See also some of the images of the Nagas or Naginis actually there, where those were really moving to me. And then I had to go after spending a day again photographing literally everything that I could. And from there, my trip was unfortunately coming to an end. And so from Thanjavur, I was able to make it back to, I believe, to Mumbai. And then, there was one more aspect of my trip that I was able to sort of, conclude with, which was going to Varanasi. And Varanasi was a place, that I had not previously been, unfortunately, even as a, someone with an academic specialization in Hindu traditions. It's kind of embarrassing, right? Like, I haven't been to Varanasi, what's going on? And so I knew I had to visit. I had heard a lot about it, and obviously, and read a lot about it. And there's even the connection I mentioned, Kashi Vishwanatha temple that was, established at the site of Om Prakash's ashram or hermitage. They had gotten their Shivalinga from Varanasi. And so it was really kind of interesting to sort of see these connections between South and North and so on. And, we know that Sabhapati himself, claims to have visited Varanasi. And so for me, I was really interested to sort of, see Manikarnika Ghat. Unfortunately, I get there and most of the places close to the river Ganga are, flooded and so on. But I was able to walk a little bit and experience the place. And from there, I went back to Bangladesh and Dhaka. It was sort of great to sort of digest and have time to internalize all of these research findings, to really compile all of these photographs of books that I had taken from, Om Prakash Swamigal's library, the photos, and get to sort of, plan next steps in terms of research and in terms of the Yoga Diagrams project that I hope will be out soon through the Center for the Study of World Religions here. And so, stay tuned. We have another great set of interviews sort of in the pipeline and coming down the road. And so I hope this video was useful to sort of, give you a sense of my own activities and how I'm plugged into this world of not just Occult South Asia, but also Hindu traditions, Sufi Islamic traditions, to a very limited extent, Tantric Buddhist traditions in the Bengal region. And so, it's really an honor to be able to share and, relate to you all on this podcast and videocast as viewers. And I look forward to sharing with you many more episodes to come. Yeah. Joy Guru.